2008 marks the 50th anniversary for the NASA space program. After Russia launched their Sputnik satellite, the race to put a person in orbit began. President Eisenhower's answer was NASA. The first 7 astronauts were John Glenn, Scott Carpenter, Walter Schirra, Alan Shepard, Gordon Cooper, Gus Grissom, and Ronald Slayton. They became American heroes almost instantly. These brave men were test pilots for the military. Obviously not a job for the weak of heart. These men had to work together as a team and yet still compete against each other to see who would be the first American in space. But first, 2 monkeys named Able and Baker were successfully launched.
This chimpanzee who was flying in space took off at 10:08. He reports that everything is perfect and working well.
Russia was still in the lead, however, when they launched cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin into orbit.
We have liftoff 49 minutes past the hour. Captain reports the clock has started. The tower is clear.
On May 5, 1961, astronaut Alan Shepard achieved suborbital flight for 15 minutes in Freedom 7, the first piloted Mercury spacecraft. America was thrilled.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too.
And President Kennedy's speech to the nation fueled the fire to reach the moon. But things did not always go as planned, as seen in this unmanned launch.
Same old story. Russians in the lead and we're dragging. It was getting to be a habit with us. The embarrassing truth was we weren't going anywhere near Earth orbit this year or any year. Not until we had a new booster. The Redstone we were flying was reliable as hell, but it didn't have enough power. There was no way around it. To reach the moon meant reaching orbit. The only thing we had to do that was Atlas. And Atlas was one bad news booster. This was the only rocket we had to get into orbit.
There's a brand new bunch of astronauts, and we're going to go down. This is supposed to be a big confidence builder to let us see a big booster take off. It goes, and we're watching it hit the high Q point up there, and instead of going on through it like it was supposed to, it blew. And it looked like an atomic bomb went off right over us. So we all look at each other, and that's the thing we're supposed to ride, So we had a few discussions with the engineers after that.
This was probably the most complex thing ever put together by humans. As much technology as a nuclear submarine crammed into the package the size of a minivan. The electrical system alone had 30 miles of wire.
On January 27, 1967, the Apollo 1 spacecraft caught fire due to a short in a wire underneath one of the seats. The fire claimed the lives of Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee. By 1968, things were looking up. The Apollo 8 took off atop a Saturn V booster. Frank Borman, James Lovell, and William Anders made history by orbiting the moon. This was the first time the world witnessed the Earth from space via a television camera.
For all the people back on Earth, the message that we would like to send to you. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light."
Contact light. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
On July 20th, 1969, Apollo 11 landed on the moon. Astronauts Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin went down in history as the first humans to walk on the moon, while Michael Collins orbited overhead in the Apollo Command Module.
I was strolling on the moon one day in a merry, merry month of December. Now, May, when much to my surprise, a pair of bunny eyes. Oh, is this a neat way to travel? Isn't it great?
There have been many more firsts in NASA's history, including the first golf balls hit on the moon,
That looked like a slice to me, Al. Miles and miles and miles.
the first use of a lunar rover, and America and Russia even united in space in 1975.
Engine start and ignition and liftoff. Liftoff of STS-7 and America's first woman astronaut.
Another first was when Sally Ride achieved the status of first American female in space aboard the Space Shuttle Challenger on June 18, 1983. In closing, I'd like to say, happy anniversary NASA, and keep on discovering.